Hello and welcome to another Dragonstorm Studios video. And today we're going to work once again with the idea of two-point perspective. So just like in the not camera video, I've got my horizon line. But in this video, I'm going to suggest that we put our vanishing point, which is this dot here that represents the very edge of our peripheral vision, off the page. And that will just allow us to create a more realistic image. It also allows for a more natural look and a bit more space to implement our subject. So I've got my areas already mapped out. You can see a couple dots on the page here and there where I've kind of laid things out a little bit. And I've given myself a space to work with it. And it's getting quite large on the page here. The idea behind this drawing is twofold. First of all, I want to experiment with some watercolors. So in the background, I'm going to be drawing a celestial or a space scene. And that sort of thing isn't really conducive in a drawing. You have seen night skies where I've dotted some stars in the sky after blackening the sky. However, that is great for an earthbound view. If I'm in space and there are nebulas and potentially planets, although I might not draw planets in this video, it's easier if you have some color to represent that. And I'm going to be using some watercolors to do that today. The reason I'm using watercolor is that actually watercolor was invented initially as an easily portable way of adding some color to a scene that you draw in the field. So you could easily bring watercolors out with you into the wilderness to draw landscape scenes. And obviously, if you've ever used oil paint, for example, that's really difficult to use in the field because of all the chemicals required, and there's just more supplies involved. The second thing, I guess, in this drawing has to do with why I'm drawing it. And I've got a friend of mine who's going back to school for the first time in, well, over a decade. And they're a little bit anxious about that. So I find a drawing is a great way of wishing well to somebody. And that could easily be done in a card. You could buy them a card, I suppose. But you could also draw them a picture. So you can see here I've got my lines worked out. My guidelines still look rather chaotic in the picture at the moment, and being aware that a lot of my lines are going to be altered here and there, like the hood of the car here, and just kind of adding some curves. But the guidelines are all done very light, and the lines I'm pretty sure I'm keeping have darkened in nicely. And that just allows you to be able to erase what you don't need when the time comes. There's going to be an awful lot of erasing as I work here, but just kind of being aware of my angles, and also just a reminder from before, things like the windshield are not going to go to a vanishing point because there are diagonals, and diagonals really don't behave nicely for us. They're kind of a more advanced version, as we saw again in that previous video. So it's beginning to take shape, and I'm hoping that as the work progresses, it's going to look better and better. Another one of my little tenets, or my little sayings in these videos, is that the artwork doesn't look good until it's finished, and a two-dimensional drawing of a 3D object like this is a prime example of that. It's really not going to look good until it's done. The windshield in particular, as you can see by my guidelines that I've erased 3 times at this point, certainly are a challenge. And one thing I found that was really helpful here was using that front tire, the front, I guess, driver's side tire, to help guide me in terms of how far to make the windshield stick in as opposed to stick out, I suppose. So another hint, I suppose, which I can give you as I worked on this and as I'm thinking about it, is that using other parts of the drawing to help you in terms of landmarks is a really neat technique to help get everything to look good. It's still kind of in progress, and the tires in particular I'm going to need to spend some time working on, but we can sort of already see it take shape, and I'm using the drawing reference picture to help me out in terms of some of these angles as well, and that's a huge help. once you've got the details and especially some of the shading that we're going to be working on now in the wheel well, it really begins to look good. Even if there are a few tricky things here and there, like I didn't quite make the vehicle tall enough, I don't think, but this is a situation where little things like that can be easily, I guess, sort of hidden, especially if you're in your early phases of a drawing, by adding details. So as I start adding in some darker areas where the tires are, and I'll work on the rims as well, it'll start looking better and better. And that's a really key point of a drawing. It's a process. It's a process which unfortunately or fortunately never really ends. You're constantly improving, you're constantly learning new things. And that's one of the things about this channel which I love so much. I've gotten so much better just because I've been doing these drawings here with you. Even something as simple as the grill in the front where the radiator is, and adding some details like the rear view mirror, what a difference that can make. So one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that my friend has a fantastic little pupper named Karma. So I'm going to be drawing Karma in here, and again looking for those basic shapes, triangular ears, that kind of stubby nose, a banana shape kind of mouth. All these little details will be fleshed out a little bit later, but just kind of give myself a chance to get some details in there. And I'm gonna use my one dad joke per video here and say, in the end, it's gonna be a magic car pet ride when all is said and done. So we add in just some areas where the fur is going to be, and of course we can't have the wonderful doggo getting out, so we're going to add just a little bit of glass in the window so it's not rolled all the way down, and that will create a reflection as well. So we'll just darken that in a little bit. And of course I'm going to draw my friend in here, as always when doing a portrait. And this is a really small one, so I'm not worried about a lot of detail, but looking for that circular shape to get the head, the axis lines in there as well. I'm going to have them with their hand, kind of an arm out the window a little bit, looking all casual as they're driving through space, as one does. And then just kind of the hair, figuring out how I want to kind of sweep down while still showing the dog there is actually turning out better than I thought it was going to. That's good. Okay, wonderful. This is something which I often plan to record several times. So I am using a semi-solid watercolor paste, and the idea behind this is that it does a great job creating color. And the thing about watercolors is that if you use mostly just the pigment, it goes on like this, and it's very solid. So you want to take a little bit of water, and the more water you add, the more easily the watercolor spreads, and it's lighter as well, which is nice. So I actually like this color for that. I'm not sure what to call it exactly. It's like a burnt orange sort of color that a lot of cars are these days. So a little bit of water can just kind of help moderate the color that you mix. And as I kind of paint this in here, I need a smaller brush to get into finer details. So I usually use two. I've got a medium-sized brush and a smaller one for all of the orange here in the vehicle. And I'm going to use a larger brush when it comes to the background. So I really wanted to have that hair flow into the nebula. It turned out really well. And now I'm just taking a skewer and some acrylic paint this time. The acrylic dries a bit faster, and I've got a bit more control over it. It's not as quite as liquidy as watercolor, and I'm just going to create some points of starlit sky around the car. Now, if I was to do the entire sky like this, I would be here for an awfully long time. So I'm going to focus on just around the car for the time being to get started, and then we'll use a different technique when it comes to the rest of the sky. But I definitely want to get the idea across that there is this beautiful star field out there. And to finish off the drawing, I'm just taking an old toothbrush, I'm dipping it into some acrylic paint, really mashing it in there, and we're just going to do a little spray of some smaller stars in the distance. I'm going to do a little bit of a flicking technique with that, because you can see my thumb has already had a chance to try it out, but we'll do a little test over here on this newspaper. You can kind of see some appearing there. Now let's give her a go. And these are the stars that you see kind of behind the more noticeable stars. It's almost like layers. Hope you enjoyed that video. I can't wait to send this off to my friend. Have a fantastic day, everyone.